I love Beast Industries. I mean, this thing started with a YouTube channel. Now, of course, it is so much more. Look, Mr. Beast is building something that I think is massively underestimated. I think the company is going to outperform the NASDAQ average. And look, this highlight reel is just second to none. I mean, you've got 420 million subscribers. Last year, I think they did 473 million in revenue. They've got a profitable chocolate business. They've got a toy line. They have a streaming deal with Amazon. And now they're on the hunt for raising at a $5 billion valuation. And at the center of all of this, they've got Beast Industries, which is the holding company for all of Mr. Beast, everything we kind of think of in the Mr. Beast universe. And that's based in Greenville, North Carolina. Something like 900 million people have watched a video of Mr. Beast this year. And in total, he's got 92 billion views of his videos, 92 billion views. This person is incredible at kind of capturing and creating that kind of pull for attention. And that really creates a huge opportunity for the business and the holding company. So today we're going to go into a lot of the things that I really like about this that I think not enough people are talking about and not enough people are thinking about when it comes to this business. We'll also go through some of the negatives, some of the stuff that gets thrown out about it, the risks, and I want to walk you through that and why I don't think they're anywhere near as important as some of the upsides here for Beast Industry. So first and foremost, what's so special about Beast? Well, besides the obvious audience, I think speed is massively underrated here. They have the ability, based off of what they've built with their channels and their audience, to move incredibly quickly on their business ventures. And whether that is basically taking an idea and bringing it out to content, bringing it out and being able to market that, they have the ability to move incredibly quickly given the relationships that they already have with their audience. And I think looking at Mr. Beast and kind of having followed this obviously for a very long time, who hasn't seen their videos? Well, statistically not that many people, and certainly if you're watching this you probably have seen something or at least a thumbnail, definitely, if you're on YouTube. So understanding kind of what those dynamics are and being able to move incredibly quickly. And it seems like, given everything that the company Beast Industries has really put together, they've taken this ethos of speed and moving very quickly to heart, and you can see it in their different business ventures. So being able to kind of get out there, and that I think makes a huge difference as you start to kind of compound and build a huge business and a huge brand. Now, the obvious stuff here too, they have zero cost of marketing, and they can do that on a global scale, right? We saw this with the Feastables brand. So that's the chocolate brand that Mr. Beast has launched and had success and is now profitable. It's sold into Walmart, but as well, it's broadly distributed. And they were able to kind of create an awesome launch around that, move very quickly, and essentially have that be funded by the different content that they were creating. Now, as part of that, as a creator, as somebody that has looked at and studied all sorts of aspects of the YouTube algorithm, they are really thinking about these things in a way that is next level in terms of engaging with their audience and understanding consumer data. So I think that gives a lot of confidence for the future of consumer launches and how they're actually marketing products. They're able to see what captures people's attention and get down to, country level. So as you think about this as a global play, they have a lot of advantages in a lot of different places of really being able to get a sense for what are people interested in, what are they emotionally reacting to, what are they clicking on, what are their viewing patterns, all of this sort of stuff, and can start to identify where some of those opportunities really are. This parallels in some sense in a very different world, very different area, but actually what Amazon was able to do with some of their consumer data, right? They saw what sort of products were interesting, and they were able to launch the Amazon Basics brand, for example, in an older state of that. Even if you think about Kirkland and Costco, anytime you have a business that's really gathering interesting and unique consumer data, that has an opportunity in some sense to think about monetizing it in a different way. And when you put out products, you have a better opportunity to kind of really size, well, where is this opportunity going to be? How do I talk to my customer about it? How do I get this out there in a really great way? So huge advantage with consumer data, and I don't see enough being talked about there. Their subscribers, okay, so he's got tons of them, 420 million of them. What's interesting is they do skew younger, right? He does very well with kids on up, but they're getting wealthier, and they're doing so in two ways. One is their subscribers are getting older. So some of the Gen Z, Gen Alpha have now some disposable income that helps in terms of building out the brand and being able to monetize in different ways. And as well, he has a large international following. So I think India is his second biggest market outside of the US. And you have subscribers in geographies outside the US that are quickly coming up the curve in terms of gaining wealth as a country. And that means some of the subscribers 10 years from now, 15 years from now, 20 years from now will continue to get wealthier and wealthier as they grow their business. And that gets to something that I have seen more talked about, and kind of the framing for the Beast Industries empire that they are building. And it's not just Jimmy Donaldson, Mr. Beast himself, right? There's a CEO that used to work at SoftBank. It was CEO of Shutterfly. There are a lot of folks that are coming around to kind of coalesce and help to build this into an empire. I think one of the mental models for that was Disney, and kind of creating this Disney for the creator era, and thinking about how to kind of tap into that sort of ethos. And I remember Disney is worth over $200 billion, right? So if Mr. Beast and Beast Industries is able to create any sort of wedge into that sort of territory, it could be, tremendously lucrative and a very, very valuable business. And if you really unpack what's going on with Disney, there's a lot of different effects that all feed off of each other. Of course, you have like the theme parks, you've got all of the places where they can put content, whether that's on TV, movies, characters, how they're building all of that sort of out. This is what Charlie Munger called a Lollapalooza, this idea that you can bring multiple different things together and have them almost build off of each other in a lattice work, where each one individually by themselves isn't nearly as powerful as some of the compounding effects that you get when you put them all together. And I think here, like Disney, there's some interesting aspects with Beast Industries and what they can do. Already, I think you're starting to see the start of a generational flywheel. So in Disney's case, for example, it was the idea that parents would watch, content with their kids. And then when those kids grew up, let's say they watched Lion King when they were younger, they're going to go, and when they have kids, they will watch that same sort of content that has a nostalgia to them with their kids. And so there's this kind of like generational referral mechanism or flywheel that goes that Disney has been able to really tap into. And you're starting to see the start of that for Mr. Beast, of kids bringing their parents into it, right? The kids get excited about Mr. Beast. He's very popular. And, the parents kind of get exposed to that via their kids. So they're in some sense reversing or inversing what Disney was able to do with it. And that's a very interesting dynamic. And I think that you could build a lot off of it. There's also a lot of psychological factors that Disney was able to take advantage of, one being social proof, right? Disney becomes more popular as more people think it is more popular. Mr. Beast has absolutely mastered that in terms of a subscriber aspect. Part of the reason for having 420 million subscribers is that there is just an interest of who is this guy to watch one of his videos or otherwise when you see that he is the most popular person on YouTube in that regard. So that social proof element can be really big. There's also availability, which Disney was really, really helpful with. Like there's always a Disney character. There's always something going on within that universe. And it seems like Beast Industries is really modeling themselves off of that, of, hey, we are always going to have something going on, whether that's Beast games or Feastables, or we're trying new different stuff. Even the things that aren't working, they create this kind of availability, and you start to associate the brand overall with fun, with events, with motion and things happening, which I think can be really, really powerful and help to reinforce this sense of like the brand is really strong. And so they've got a lot of potential in the future to kind of build out this IP flywheel. So, their intellectual property, they can do things like in the future, like a theme park. They're already building off of streaming. They might be able to do, live events or otherwise. Really think about this kind of broadly. They have the brand to be able to expand in those areas. And I think over the next 10 years, they could do a lot there that would build on itself. And let's talk a little bit more about the brand because it is a killer brand. Okay. There are a lot of benefits to what they have already done and how they can continue to develop it. The brand itself, when you see it, it tells you immediate. It is something that is kind of like, you click something, you engage with this brand, something is going to happen fast and it's probably going to be something big. The fact that that happens to work really, really well on YouTube and they have grown up in that kind of algorithm sense, I think that actually translates really well to the brand as they kind of think about, what is the aspirations for the brand? How do people react to it? There's always a very quick reaction. In some sense, that mirrors the content that they've been able to put out. There's also the supremacy concept, right? They are the undisputed global heavyweight of the world when it comes to this area, right? They have the subscribers to back it up, the content production for it. And that supremacy, people like to associate with things that they view as being a winner, as a leader, right? And I look at parallels for, let's say, Michael Jordan in the Jordan shoe brand, for example. Part of the big reason why people feel an affinity, they feel that connection with a Jordan brand and aspiration there is because Michael Jordan, for his period, and in the perspective of a lot of people still today, was just so undisputedly the best basketball player ever. And associating with that, I think can create a strong resonance with the brand. And I think Mr. Beast in his own area has created that, that supremacy, that kind of overall, like this is the top dog in the area that people like to click in with. It's also pretty universal. I think the brand, it plays well. And just looking at Mr. Beast's subscriber numbers, it's global. It's pretty clearly this is not something where it only appeals to a US audience. I think very much, it plays on more universal emotional levels and has helped him to build this out into a global brand. So I think a lot to love there, and kind of that Disney parallel. Love the Lollapalooza. These are things that compound over time and long periods of time. That's the sort of stuff that makes me think we have yet to really fully scratch the surface of some of those compounding effects. It's still very early in that. That will continue if they keep on the right path here and keep playing some of these pieces out and continuing to tune it. They'll start to get more and more of those effects later on. I think they've also got to play on being the AWS or Amazon Web Services for the creator economy because of that brand. And they've already started to go a bit in this direction with view stats and some of these concepts of allowing creators to use some of their tools to make their content creation easier for everyone, right? If the creator economy as a whole and how people are creating not only video content, but other forms of content, as that industry and that market begins to grow and grow, Mr. Beast brand and the Beast Industries can really take advantage of their sort of position, right? And going back to the supremacy, I mean, who wouldn't want to use the sorts of tools that the number one creator is using? Who wouldn't want to make sure that they had their kind of process streamlined and built out and could use some of those sorts of tools for creativity? Maybe not for everyone. Okay, fine. Just in the same way Amazon Web Services wasn't. But I think a lot of people would gravitate towards just the ease of use. And you're talking about someone who has unbelievable credibility in developing and marketing these types of products. So a lot of white space there. They would be the very, very clear leader if they go deeper into that area, and I think that'll be pretty cool to see. When Amazon launched Amazon Web Services, it was not thought of as going to be anywhere close to the revenue and profit driver that it later become. I think there's a potential here for something special as well. Look, moat competition, something we usually like to talk about here. I don't see any in sight. I mean, no one can come close to what is being plowed back into content here, and I think that that's a unique aspect of this business. Gets me pretty excited for it. And I think I try to look at some things that went way back, right? People think about Beast Industries as cutting edge, really, really new. I try to find like where have we seen this sort of pattern before? Let's go back a little bit more. We obviously talked about Disney, but I actually think about Sears. Okay, so when Sears, right, Sears and Roebuck Company, we got to go way, way back here. When they first started, they were ridiculed. I mean, we're talking ripped to shreds for selling via mail order catalogs. I mean, they didn't even have local stores. And this was a business that ended up basically defining American retail for decades. And so that is a really, really cool aspect here. I think that, the Beast Industries and the concepts that they're working with, how they're really thinking about that distribution, the idea that you can move products and kind of speak directly to an audience that you've cultivated a long-term relationship, and then move products or move services through that channel to them. I think it's just so easy for people to dismiss this as saying, "Oh, this is a YouTuber," right? This is and just kind of be dismissive in that way. But I'd really caution against that. I think sometimes these sorts of paradigms, when they come out, can be misunderstood for a really, really long time. There's another company, the bubblegum company, Wrigley's. If you remember them, the Wrigley Field in Chicago. That's the concept for Wrigley's. They were also laughed at back in the 1800s when they got started. They were giving away gum for free, right? Okay. Seems crazy. People thought they were nuts, like certifiably insane and otherwise. Turned out that sampling and having, free samples, not such a bad idea in the end. Okay. Well, they used that to become a global brand and built out some pretty relentless distribution off the back of it. So I think, discard these sorts of innovative business models and things that don't quite match your pattern at your own discretion. Sometimes they can be, real big monsters in their time and their era as well. Look, retention is also pretty interesting with Beast Industries, and we'll talk about some of the setbacks in a second and some of the risk factors. But coming from a YouTube background is a huge advantage when you're really thinking about retention. So retention being, okay, is somebody buying a Feastables bar, let's say, and then you're converting them into a customer that's going to buy a number of times each year over the next 5 years or 10 years. That's retention. And it actually parallels a lot of some of the early skills that they really honed within the company for, working with YouTube's algorithm. How do you get someone not just to start watching a video, but to watch it all the way through? That's retention when it comes to YouTube, but also to be thinking about how do we get them to come back to watch another video and to be a part of our audience and a subscriber for the next year, 5 years, 10 years, and kind of beyond. So I think the mindset is there. And I've heard a lot of podcasts where Jimmy Donaldson has come on and really talked about retention. So it's pretty clear it's top of mind at the company. It's something that they're really thinking about. And that I think puts them in good stead here. It is very difficult to get people to try products to begin with. I think a lot of creators, though, have cracked that and been able to have their audience try different products and start that journey with them. I think that the success with MrBeast is that that's such a foregone conclusion for them that they can really put their effort and energy towards making sure the products are right. And if they have, let's say for consumer packaged goods, a range of different SKUs, that they're really thinking about kind of that whole portfolio and how to really drive the retention really smartly with that. And now let's talk about some of the risks and setbacks. So there was, Beast Burger. There's been controversies over Lunchly, which is their uh, Lunchables competitor for kid snacks and lunches to go. I think the company has actually learned a ton. And the key here is actually speed in response to these sorts of setbacks. It's very clear that the Beast brand can handle controversy, and still the content flywheel keeps moving forward. The subscribers keep coming in. The content is great. And the key is moving very quickly and continuing to improve and taking some of those lessons in as they scale and build. I think the interesting part here is not so much there are going to be setbacks or things that aren't working as you grow and scale a company. I think any company that is around, a billion, 5 billion in valuation and kind of that sphere, to get to, let's say, 50 billion and continue to scale the company to those types of heights, you really have to be thinking about, okay, how do we continue to learn? How are we really implementing some of the things that we're learning in one area and making sure that we're being as smart as possible across the company? It's going to mean that there are, pivots. There are going to be failed launches. Probably in this case, less so the launches being a failure because of really the strengths here, but some of the execution you're going to expect to see not quite where we want it to be, not how we would have done that. That type of reactions. And, I think the honesty with it that I see from this company, where they're willing to kind of look at stuff. And because so much of their business is, quite frankly, really incredibly public, not only for journalists, they're exposing themselves in big ways here. These things can move very quickly. And I think that they have the opportunity to be able to pivot very quickly and move off of things and not have them be kind of derailing multi-year setbacks. There's always the next thing. There's always something else coming next. And that motion and that speed is really, really important. Big risk factor a lot of people would talk about with this is key person risk or key man risk. It's so obvious in this case that yes, there is one person who embodies the MrBeast brand more than anybody else. Of course, that's the case. I worry more about blind spots, not the sort of risks and obvious stuff that everybody else is thinking about here. I think that's already priced in, right? They're also like more of a platform, more of a muscle that's going here. It's not just one person. I think when you really see the staff that's been built out, the team, there's now multiple offices, people in Silicon Valley, there are people in New York behind this brand and across the country that are pushing this. This has come a huge long way since it was one person with a YouTube channel, right? So I think there's also the flip of something like a key man risk in this case. I look at some of the positives of this is also someone who has tremendous opportunities and power and ability to kind of access things because of his reputation. Frankly, he can get anyone on the phone immediately. This is huge for business. They've got a problem. They're trying to figure something out. They don't know how this works. We want to hire someone great for this role. What does that look like? Literally any problem that is going to come across their radar, all they need to do is pick up the phone and people will want to talk to this person. That has tremendous value. It goes towards the speed. And when a company is moving that quickly and can kind of get through obstacles and otherwise and bring in interesting people and interesting collaborators to it, I think the Rolodex here is the flip of the key man risk and a real important asset for the business. Other risk, what about YouTube, right? Aren't we told in business like you can't have too much dependency on one channel? Well, are they dependent on YouTube? I'd actually argue maybe the flip. I feel in some sense YouTube is more reliant on top creators like MrBeast than maybe the other way. It seems like a very symbiotic relationship here. YouTube has become tremendously successful on the back of creators. I think they're mindful of those sorts of relationships and thinking about that. I don't view this as a large risk. I think the MrBeast brand has really direct fan relationships. I think that mitigates that pretty significantly. And they're not the only ones facing this type of risk. You could imagine if there were real problems with YouTube and how they were interfacing with some of the top creators, MrBeast gets on the phone with 100 of his best friends, and all of a sudden they've got, a YouTube creator a YouTube competitor that I think could have instant sort of credibility here. So I just don't think anyone's going to that third rail. And, there's also Amazon Prime, there's streaming platforms, there's other opportunities here. And YouTube fundamentally wants to show quality content, and they're going to push, the different MrBeast channels if they continue to see the algorithm continues to see that that's quality content. I see where that's going. Look, there's going to be controversy with MrBeast. I think just the nature of putting out that amount of content with that amount of visibility, and as the team has grown and there's other stars on the channel, you are going to continue to have different controversies. I think what has been impressive so far is that the brand seems to be mostly anti-fragile. Not that they're not taking hits along the way, but hits usually mean attention. It means being discussed. It means people have strong opinions about it. And I think that sort of attention is something that can kind of continue to perpetuate on itself. I think generally speaking, this is either a positive or more of a wash. And this is someone, I think at the core of the Beast brand, a lot of these people have been very public with their life. So I think we've kind of discovered a lot of the aspects of them, come to know who these people are, and I view this as relatively minimal risk. So overall, I mean, I think the concerns here are really outweighed by the positives. I'm really bullish on Beast Industries. I think that they would outperform the Nasdaq average. And look, agree, disagree, please comment down below, and of course, subscribe to get more analysis on private tech companies.